Hello, Donna Kato here. Welcome to my studio. Welcome to my channel. Today we're going to have a little studio session and it's going to be about vessels. You see these? These are my vessels. I designed them to work as a grouping because I felt like I should do something that isn't jewelry. So this is something that I enjoy very much. Now, I started out the week making two vessels that looked like tornadoes. Really ugly. But, you know, I learned a lot from them about the construction of a shape that's kind of that odd. But they were ugly. And so I thought, you know, maybe that's not the way to go. Maybe what I have to do, maybe what the goal should be, is to create items that are well designed and well made. And if I do 3 of them, then I have a grouping. And these are highly functional for me. I will use them a lot. I can just see little white posies sticking out of each one of these and grouping them together on a table or something. I don't do a lot of home decor, but I like home decor. And so much of what I see in polymer clay and personally what I make is kind of over embellished because sometimes it seems like the goal is actually to make something that stands by itself as a piece of art. Sometimes that works. A lot it works for a lot of people. And sometimes I think it's just better to reel it back and say, I'm just going to make something that looks like I picked it up at the Crate and Barrel. Okay, why not? This will live very happily in my home and on my table. So it's valuable to me. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to show you basically how to make one because you can tell the bodies of the 3 vessels are the same. They are entirely clay. So I will show you how to make the polka dot vessel in red. We'll work in red. And of course, I'll show you how to do the different openings. All right, so that's my story. I'm sticking to it. It's time to start. Let's do it. So let's talk about what you need, all right? What do you need to make these vessels? First of all, you need a form. This is metal, this is glass, this is plastic, and you would never use plastic. No, no, no. Metal, glass, okay? Temporary forms, you're gonna pull them out, and that's why the 3 vessels I made were each formed around this. Now, this is from IKEA. It was part of a light fixture. The light fixture bit the dust, and I took these off. I love these, and they're perfect. They're wonderful forms. I love them. So, you know, just keep your eyes open. Look for those forms. This was part of a vase that I got at Bombay. Was it called the Bombay Beach Club? Bombay. Anyway, it was a wonderful store that no longer exists, but you'll be able to find forms. Go to, you know, thrift stores, go to the Goodwill, and you will find things like this. Now, you'll notice the shape. They're tapered, right? So I'm not going to cover something that looks like a ball. Okay, and I do happen to have a ball here, a metal ball that Bettina gave me. But that's not one that I would probably use for this purpose. Not that it's impossible, it just requires different strategy. If you're going to make something that, you know, the clay captures like that, you have to deal with that a little differently. So initially, please try to select a form that is thin at one end and flares out at the other. Okay. Now, you're also going to need foil. Da, da, da. And you need, you know, a little Scotch tape because we're going to tape the form we're going to tape the foil around the form. You need a little bit of paper like this. You know, when you map out the dots, if you're going to do polka dots, you really have to map them out properly. Otherwise, it's just not going to look perfect. So I use just this kind of paper to map out the pattern. Okay, we'll get to that. So those are essentially the things you're going to need, other than your normal clay tools, your blades, your scalpel, your, you know, cutters, this kind of thing. And this is a studio session because you're probably not going to use this exact thing, nor are you going to use this exact thing. I mean, you're going to be using your own basic forms. So it's really hard for me to tell you you can make exactly what I made when what I made relies so completely on this one piece that you probably don't have. Okay, so what else? Oh, okay. So here's something else that's really helpful, but optional, not totally required for the success of your piece. And this is some kind of, I think you wrap sandwiches or meat, or you separate hamburger patties with it. Anyway, I bought it many years ago from Marla Frankenberg, and it's called Satin Pack, and you can still buy it. I went to Amazon, and you can still buy it. It appears you have to buy 10 boxes. So I've ordered something else, another product that looks to be much the same. So I'll keep you filled in on that, because this is really helpful stuff. I really like it a lot. Okay, what else? You're going to need sandpaper. That comes at the end. But, you know, the Abranet is what I use. So this is Abranet. This is P80. I think I actually used P120, 180, and 600. Okay. You're going to need some Nivea cream because the Abranet scratches up the surface so badly. You really need this. Kind of heals it up a bit. You're still going to see the scratches, but, you know, I love this for clay. Not so much for your skin because it's so greasy, because it sort of sinks into the clay and it creates this really beautiful kind of matte finish. Okay, so I think that's it. I think we're ready to start. Okay, let's do it. All right, so the first thing we have to do is cover our little vessel. And I'm going to cover it with foil. I have a little bit of Scotch tape. And you know, I think I'm going to fold it, just double it up. And I'm going to begin by just aligning it to the open edge, this edge, and just wrap it around. Actually, first, I'm going to take a little piece of tape. This will help me when I need it. Okay. Wrap. And I want to wrap it tightly around. It's going to loosen up a little. That's really okay. Okay. And I do try to align it with that edge. Like so. Now I will take my tape. Just tape it closed so it doesn't loosen up more. Okay. Now, I'm just going to take and sort of ease this up toward the narrow end, like so. Okay. I could cut and trim it, but, you know, aluminum foil just compresses down to almost nothing, even at double thickness, so I don't see any reason to do any trimming like that. Now I am going to put a little more tape, and I did not tape this to the form. The foil is taped around the form. Okay, now let's just take, I'm just using my acrylic rod, and I'm just stroking, and you can see how it's just compressing. See, it's flattening out. Whoops. And it even slid out, which is okay, because I'll just slide it back in. Okay. Sliding out is fine, because it will be, I hope, easier to get the form off. You'd be surprised how hard it can be. And I have to say, it was more difficult when I did single thickness of the foil. It was then more difficult to get the form off. Double thickness, I don't know, seems to help. All right, so now this is going to get covered. Now, this first vessel is going to have a very small opening, so I'm just going to cover it, and then I'm going to trim around here, and that will be the top of the vessel. Okay, so let me prepare my clay. Scrap, but I have to roll it into a sheet, so I'll be back. Okay, you know what? I decided that I'm going to show you how you would make a long, narrow neck above the vessel. Now, I've already made that one. It's in the oven. So I will show you how, but then I'm going to cut it off. All right, so to make the neck, you're going to need some kind of, smooth-sided tool like this. And this, of course, is the diameter of the opening that you're going to make. It's going to be sitting just like this, all right? So the first thing, and I'm just going to use single thickness. I'm just going to do it. All right. So what I do is I begin by taping foil, like right there. And let's just wrap it around, okay? And I'm gonna wrap it a few times around. Like so, and I'm kind of wrapping straight around. This edge of the foil is not going down very much. It's like pretty even, if you can see. See, there's the beginning. And I'm just wrapping it just a couple times. It doesn't have to be, like, this is more foil than I need. See all this excess? Well, I'm just gonna cut it. Cutting it. And just cutting it away, like so. Now, I'm gonna tape the other side. Tape it down so it doesn't move. I mean, it wants to move. It's not a huge problem, but it's a little bit easier if I just use a little bit of tape. Now I'm going to insert this. Now you could use, this is temporary. It's not going to be cured in there. So just feed it in. You could use temporarily the back of my brush, something like this. And you just want to hold it right over there in the center. Right where you want it to be. And then start compressing the foil around the brush or the Bic stick or the acrylic rod or the little brass tube or whatever it is that you have inserted and centered over the hole like this. You see, just like so. All right. So let me just show you what's happening here, just like that. Okay. And I'll just keep compressing a little bit farther up. I mean, you can make it quite long, like so. Okay, just to get it kind of out of the way, like this. Now, when I'm doing a long neck like this, I start with the neck and then I cover the rest of the form. So I've rolled this clay through setting number 1 in my pasta machine. But you know, for the neck, I do want it to be a little thinner. So I'm going to re-roll this through setting 0. So it's just a tad thicker. Okay. Went a little off kilter, so let me just cut it. And let's say the neck is going to be that long. That's way too much. I don't nearly need that much of it. Now, I'm going to align this lower edge just a little bit lower on the body like that. You see, I'm not just on the neck, on the body. And then in the same fashion, just wrap it straight around like that. Just straight around. And I'll trim the excess away. Maybe I'll, okay. All right. So you see, it's kind of secured there. The lower part. And I really kind of push it on there too, like so. Now, clearly I have too much clay at the top. It's got to snug up against this, the foil and the tool. All right, so first I'm just gonna try to cut some excess away by just making an angled cut like that. I keep losing the form, which is okay because all I have to do is push it back in. If it happens to you, don't worry, just push it back in. Okay, so I still feel like I have too much. So I'm gonna make a straight cut just like that and remove the excess. Then take this and swing it over there. Then cut the excess away from that side, like so. And then close it up. And now I've made a nice little neck on the vessel. So it's quite simple, and you can make it very long if you want. You just have to take your foil and wrap farther up the tool. Then smooth like so. And this is going to be covered up with more clay, so you can use your scrap. Okay, now as you're pushing, make sure you don't have too much air in there. And if you feel you have air, then just take a needle and just pierce like that so it can escape. Okay. So now it's time to do this flared opening. Now, when I began, I had a good idea of the colors I was going to use, but I didn't really know specifically what I would be doing with the particular vessels. I mean, I had not planned to make the red one with a flared lip. But you know what? Let's say I had planned on it. Then making this flared top over this form, I would use red, because then at least I wouldn't have to line the opening, would I? You know, I might choose to cover the flared lip again in red, but I wouldn't have to. and it would have a much nicer opening. I wouldn't have to go through the trouble of applying another sheet of clay to cover up the scrap. Okay, so I think that should be clear. Now this, I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know what color it's going to be. I have no plans for this particular one because I've already, well, this is a pickup shot. So I don't even know if I'm going to complete it or finish it. But I think I'm going to show you how to make this a larger flare, a flare that is bigger than this one. In which case, you would definitely want to know what color your vessel was going to be. All right, but this is just a demo, and I will probably take it apart. Now, this has been rolled through the thickest setting of the pasta machine. You saw that I cut it. It is 2 inches. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it and I'm just going to wrap it around the vessel. And, you know, I'm wrapping perhaps like 1 inch down. Doesn't have to be. I could wrap it closer to the top. Wrap it and then just kind of mark it. So now I know the mark here indicates what the diameter is where I did wrap it. So I'm going to cut it there. Now I'm going to make a tube. I'm going to bring the sides together, the cuts together, and I am going to do my very best to join them, like so. Okay. My scrap clay is pretty soft, so it's not too difficult to do, but I don't want it to come apart. You see, so it's got to be pretty well squished together. And this is primarily accomplished by taking my little chubby fingers and putting them in the clay tube and just pressing like so. I don't want this particular spot to get really, really thin. So I do 2 things. I'm actually squeezing, which is making it thinner, but then I am compressing, see, like that, which is making it thicker again. Because I don't want this to split. Now, I can take perhaps the back of my needle tool or some other metal tool and just kind of scrape it across to try to join everything together a little bit better. All right, so there we have a tube. Now let me just make this end a little bit more open, like so. And you see I'm just rotating and stretching just a little at a time. And now I will put it back on the vessel and really press it onto that foil. Okay. And I will narrow the opening. You see, I'm just rotating and pushing like so to narrow the opening. So I've made a little neck, haven't I? Now to make the flare wider at the top, I'm just going to start rotating again and stretching. Rotate and stretch. Just keep rotating and stretching. Now the clay has been rolled through the thickest setting, as you know, so I can stretch it quite a bit. When I get to the point where there's the seam, I'm more careful. I hold the seam shut as I'm pulling on one side and then the other. And every now and then, maybe just a little pinch. Now I'm going to rotate and press and pinch and rotate, and I'm lifting my camera. I feel like I'm like touching the lens. That's not what I want. Trying to keep everything underneath my iPhone. Okay. And just pulling. Now, so you see how much wider, how much more broad the lip is now. So let me pinch to make the actual opening a little bit smaller. I like that very tiny waist or neck. Good old Scarlett O'Hara waist. I think her waist is about the same as my neck. I can't imagine, folks, having like an 18-inch waist. Really? Is that noise annoying? It's kind of annoying to me. I think I will do that. We're almost, see, I broke it. So maybe I should not be thinking about a little teeny waist and paying a little more attention to what I'm doing. It's not a tragedy. It's not a tragedy. It can be fixed. I fixed it. A la la la. A la di da. You know, this is a lot of fun. I don't know if you guys are going to think it's fun, but I really enjoy processes like this. You know, I'm just gradually altering the shape, and polymer clay is so good at this, right? So good. I can make this clay at the top so thin. I really can. Cool, cool, cool. Woohoo. Yeah. Okay, so it really is just that simple. The only hazard is that seam, so you just have to be careful with it. I wasn't quite as careful as I should have been, but you can see it can be repaired. And of course, I would cover it with more clay, so you'll never even see that I made such a boo-boo. It's a boo-boo. It's a boo-boo. Okay, so I'm going to stop now. I could go on for a long time, but I'm going to stop. And that is how you make a flared neck on your little vessel. All right, let's move on. Okay, I'm back. I'm back. I know. You can't get rid of me. Let's make a little spout on this thing, all right? So I'm going to take my fingers and I'm going to hold just about like that. And then I'm going to take my other finger and start stroking down like so. Why not? It can be done. Okay. Now, of course, this isn't going to be used for anything. Like, I'm not going to put sake in it or something. But, you know, you can do things like this. Make a little vessel. And now I have a spout. Cool. I love it. This will be a vessel with a spout. You can even pull it over further. So now it's really like that. Okay, now I am going away. No, actually, I'll be back. Okay, for the third or fourth time, I'm going to try to start. The first time I did it completely backwards, and the second time something else happened, and the third time I dropped clay on Louie, and the fourth time I didn't have all the materials I needed. So you know what? It's just a typical day in the studio. Now, what I'm going to show you is this, how to make this opening. Now, I debated about whether I needed to show you this. And then I realized, I have a really great way of doing this, so I'm going to show you. Okay, now each of the vessels, I've showed you how to form the neck. This neck, and this neck, and now this neck. So each of the vessels I have made started out with the neck, and then I wrapped the rest of the scrap clay around to make a uniform layer of clay around, right? And that's the way I have chosen to do it. I'm not telling you that's the way you have to do it, because if you knew what you were going to do, you could just as easily wrap the whole vessel body and then make the neck. Okay, these are not like hard and fast rules. Okay, so I am going to make that nice opening. And I wish I had done it this way the last time, but I didn't. Okay, I'm going to take a cutter. This has been rolled through the thickest setting of the pasta machine. And it's been rolled through the thickest setting in the pasta machine because the rest of the clay around is also going to be rolled that same thickness. Now, whatever thickness you're going to use to wrap around the vessel, that's what thickness this is. I'm going to take a small cutter because I want a very small opening. Okay, like that. And there goes Louie. And I'm going to cut a hole out of the center. Just like that. I made a donut. I love donuts. Now I'm going to put, hello. Got a little fur in my clay. Just like that. And I am going to now kind of ease it down over. Like so. Woohoo. Look at that. Okay. Got a little bit of a crack there. I don't know why, but there it is. Now just smooth it over. Because this vessel is not going to be scrap clay. I'm going to cover it up. If it becomes a vessel, maybe it's just the opening. I haven't I don't know why he's barking. Anybody ever see the movie Marley and Me? I saw it this morning. There was something so familiar about that movie. Something I could really relate to. I wonder what it is. Okay. So there is the opening. Pretty nifty, huh? Just take a small cutter. Small cutter. Decide how big the opening is going to be. And just press it to the vessel. And now it's ready to be covered. The rest of it is ready to be covered with more scrap clay. Ta-ta! So there we go. Now on we go. I'm back. All right. So, if this looks different, it's because it is. This is what you call a pickup shot. This is what happens when the presenter thinks they're turning the camera on and they're not. Okay, so this is what you call a pickup shot. Okay, so here is raw clay. Made a little neck. I don't know what color I'm going to make this one, but I wanted to make more of these vessels anyway, so the pickup shot is not in vain. All right, so I am going to wrap the scrap clay around from here to the bottom. But it's helpful if you just take your blade and you cut around so that you get a nice sharp cut like so. And I will cut from my scrap clay sheet and press it up against this nice straight cut. All right, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's do it. I hate it when that happens. I think I've turned the camera on and nope. Wrong Ola. Let me see something. How tall? Oh yeah, tall enough. So let me just cut this side just a bit. Yeah, thankfully it doesn't happen all that often, but it still happens. Just like me going off camera. You know, I don't know how to tell you this, but that's probably always going to happen. So I'm going to cut like that. You notice I didn't cut straight because, of course, the vessel gets bigger as it goes down to the bottom. Right? Ta-ta! So I'm going to start by just picking a spot. Just like that. Now, this is a straight sheet. It wants to go around like that. I'm not going to let it. Nope, nope, nope. I'm just going to compress the clay a little bit as I wrap. See? It still wants to go around that way. I'm just going to compress it like that. Ta-ta. Okay, and I just keep wrapping like that. Just keep pulling it up. It wants to do its own thing, but I am the master of my universe in my studio. So it is not going to get away with that kind of silliness. Okay, and I really am just pulling the clay up. Like that. See? Ta-da. Now, if we look at the bottom, hello, get down, you. And now I will let it do its thing. See, this is that cut edge. It really wanted to like go straight down. It did not want to do what I wanted it to do. All right, so I can see the clay, this edge underneath. Okay, but rather than try to cut exactly right there and then push it again, I'm going to start at the top here where they overlap, and I'm cutting through both layers all the way down. Remove the excess from the top, lift, remove the excess from below, and then press the two together like that. Easier. And in this way, I know I have enough clay. Sometimes I cut too much away. Not quite long enough here, I can tell. Not a problem. I'm just going to stretch the clay out just a tad. Not going to make any difference. Nobody's going to notice that it's ever so slightly thinner right there where I stretched it. Not really a problem. Now I'm just going to try to coax this like so at the bottom. See? Like that. Now I just need to trim the excess away with my blade. Come on, you can do it. You can do it. Come on, buddy. You can do it. Yay. You did it. Not bad. Now, what will happen here? If it's just a little jaggedy here, well, after it's cured, I'll just sand it and make it nice and smooth. Now we have to join this, okay? And I've always done a lot of this kind of thing. Just rolling back and forth, rolling like that. Da, 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 da. And you know what? All right, my friends, I thought I was shooting, but I wasn't. Hello. So here you see the vessel. I trimmed the top off. But I do want to tell you that one of the things that helps kind of smooth the sides, Louie, I use this kind of plastic. It's used for food. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but if you use this, it does make it quite a bit easier to smooth. Remember, I had to smooth that lump? And by putting this on the top, I'm able to sort of use the side of my acrylic rod and push the clay in a way that I can't if the acrylic rod is grabbing the clay. Okay, so it just makes it slightly easier to move the clay. Okay, and it's quite a bit faster. This is a lot faster than just rolling like that forever. Not forever, but for a very long time. Now, yes, I don't know how I do that, but I do it. I mean, I press the little red button and I think I've turned my camera on and I haven't. Okay, so that's good. And I will put the name of this paper in the description. All right, so I cut the top off. Remember, I have her flared out like that. So let me just show you how that happens. Just imagine it's flared up. Now I'm going to pull some of this clay a little bit farther up on that foil because I want a small opening, okay? I want a small opening. So the way I cut is I take my blade and I find where I want to cut, and then I take and I rotate the vessel into the blade. Now I'm just holding the blade stationary. I'm trying not to move it. Okay, and you know, I try. I'm sure I'm moving it, but I try. All right. Okay, and now, and of course this is going to be sanded later, but that's how I cut. All right. Ta-da. All right, so this is going to be cured, and then I'll be back. Okay, so this is cured. So all we have to do is remove the form, and it came out quite easily, as we knew it would because it kept falling out. Okay, so that gets set aside for the next time. And now I have to try to pull this out. Now, I got the top out, but there's still quite a bit. Oh, there's quite a bit of foil in there, so I'm just going to take a needle and start trying to push it down and out the bottom, which is easy enough to do, I think. It's not stuck or anything. Okay. All right, good deal. I'm getting there, I'm getting there. No, I'm really just loosening it up. Now, ooh, yeah, the whole form is still in there. Okay, let me work on it a little bit more. Come on, you. It's stuck way up at the top. Maybe I'll use the pointy end of the needle. Come on. Still in there. I don't think I've ever left foil inside. This might be the first time. Nope, I'm getting it. Doink. All right, it's all out. Okay, now I gotta put a bottom on because these will hold water, and this is what the bottom looks like on these two, you see. So what I do is simple. This is scrap clay rolled through the thickest setting. I'm just going to stick it right here on that paper. Now, I have to sand the bottom flat. I forgot. Okay, so let me quickly do that. It doesn't take very long. Just take it and you just sand the bottom flat, like so. See? Done. Now I have to get rid of all of this dust. I have a million towels around here. You would think they'd be easy to find. Okay, flat. Now I'm going to take the liquid and I'm going to put liquid along the edge on the bottom of the vessel. Okie dokie. Let's slide this over. Now, what I do is I'm just going to take it and just push. I have to stand up. Push this right down into that clay. Just. Okay. And then I'm just going to cut the excess away. Come back. All right, here we go. And this one is a little flat. You know, if I had pushed, here, I'm going to show you. If I push harder, okay, let me see if I can do it. You know, it's not that important. I kind of like it, though. All right. See? And now it's indented. I just pushed harder. Okay. Let me trim it. Then this will be cured and then sanded. But let's cure it first. It works out better that way if you cure it before you sand it. Okay, back in the oven it goes. I'll be back. All right, so it's cured and it's ready to be sanded. So I want you to look closely. See, it needs a lot of work, quite a lot of work. This should be absolutely smooth and straight. Straight. The bottom, I want, see how it goes, and then it goes slightly out, it flares slightly at the bottom. I don't want that, so I'm going to sand that away too. So I'll be back after I sand, so just take a look, and then I'll show you what it looks like after sanding. Okay, so here are the 3 vessels. Now, I sanded them all. This one is looking really good. Really good. See, there are just a couple dark spots. That's where I didn't, when I was sanding, the sandpaper didn't touch that, but they're just very small spots. I will look a little closer. Maybe I'll sand this one just a bit more, try to get rid of those. This one is looking good as well. Only a couple of dark spots, a couple of areas that I think need to be sanded a little more. This one has this large area along the bottom, you see. I wasn't able to sand that. Now, I could keep sanding and sanding and sanding, but I think it's probably best to take some softened clay and try to fill that in and make this very level that way, rather than sanding something away, adding a little bit of clay and curing it again. Doesn't even have to be a full cure, just a little bit. So let me do that. Now I'm going to take some liquid clay and just brush it over that area where I want to fill. Okay. What is that? Oh, green clay. I have green clay on my nails. Okay, so I'm just really just trying to push that clay into that area. All right. Now let's take a blade and see if I can just trim it away. Oops. Oopsie. I want to push that in a little further. See, that looks really good. And I won't even do much to it. I'm going to leave it and cure it, and then I can sand it after. Okay. Come on. Let's try that again. Okay, this is going to go in the oven, and after it's done, I'll be back. You know, if I'm going to be curing this one, I think I'm going to throw these in the oven with, and I'll tell you why, because see how scratched up they are? You know, that's because of the Abranet P80. Well, if I put them in the oven, it'll sort of slightly heal those scratches. That will help when I take the clay and put it on the surface. It'll adhere better. So I am going to take all of these and put them in the oven for maybe 15 minutes. You know, it doesn't have to be a long time. Okay, I'll be back. All right, it is time to think about how I'm going to wrap these. They're all going to be polka dots, white polka dots, and, you know, in a field of some color. These are the colors I've chosen. I also mixed a turquoise, but when I look at these together, I guess if I replaced one, it might be this guy like that. But I like this color better than this color. So these are the colors I'm going with. All right, so let's talk about them. Now, I know that there is white in this color mix. There is no white in this color mix, and there is white in this color mix. Now, why is the presence of white in the mixed color important? It's because the vessels are dark. And it is possible that a color without white in it, well, the darkness might show through. So I don't have to do it with this color or with this color, but I'm going to wrap this center vessel with white. And that white will protect this color from the influence of that dark, the dark vessel. Okay, so I think that makes sense, right? Okay, good. All right, let me set these aside. I'm gonna wrap this guy with white. Just a thin sheet, doesn't have to be very thick. It can be very thin as a matter of fact. I'll be back. Look, you can see how messy it is back there. Should put them together so you can't see. Ah, you still see the mess. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so this is still pretty scratched up, because the Abranet P80, you know, the curing in the oven did sort of heal the surface a bit, but it's still pretty coarse, pretty scritchy. So I'm going to use PolyPaste, and I'm just going to put it all over. And then I'm going to cover this whole thing with a really thin sheet of white clay. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, so I rolled this clay through setting 6. So it's quite thin. It could be thinner, but you know, it would then be very difficult to handle. It's going to be hard enough without making it even thinner. So let's just start by lining it up like so. Now you're getting the view from the top. You're getting the bird's eye view. Okay, so now it's time to think about the pattern that I'm going to put on my vessels. I've got my vessels here. And, you know, they share the same basic shape. So that kind of draws them together, I think, as a grouping. I've already selected the colors that I want, and I think these colors work together. But now, and I'm just going to do polka dots because I love polka dots. But what am I going to do with the polka dots? Now, one thing I could do that I know absolutely works is simply do white polka dots. Okay, so let's just lay out some white polka dots and see how that would look, so that the difference is in the color of the background. But this is not uncommon. I have a set of coffee mugs that are actually just like this. Just like this. Well, not exactly, maybe just like it, but solid color background, white dots. And let me tell you, those 4 coffee mugs go together just perfectly. So that's what that would look like, basically. So there's one option. Well, let's take these off. And I like it. This is probably the safest arrangement, really. All right, so another arrangement that could be done would be to do almost a tone on tone. So here is one color, here are dots. That would be a lighter tone. This, actually, I would probably go with a darker tone like this. Like so. And maybe this guy, I could either kind of pull the orange in that I like, or the yellow. Maybe the yellow. So that's a second direction we might go. Or, you know, it doesn't have to be tone on tone. I could select a completely different color, right? But make all the dots the same color. So here is that sort of olive green arrangement. And let me pull off and see what happens when I put turquoise on. Like that. So you can imagine 3 vessels that would look like this. Now here's another option. This is a more rosy color, but there isn't a lot of contrast between the background and this rose color, so I think I would go with that lighter color. Or even, no, I think tone on tone for this. So the only one that would be a departure would be this, where it departs from the color in the back and just goes off into turquoise. Okay, so that is another option. And you know what? I like that. I think that works as well. Now, a third option, because I have all these different colors, would be, let's say, to just completely mix up the colors and make them multicolor, so that it's a solid background, but each vessel would have multicolors. And I certainly have all the colors, so this is, so there's another option. Like so. And I have to say that this, I think, is a more festive kind of arrangement with many different colors, like so. The white, as I said, I feel is the safest. It is kind of a traditional kind of thing that I've seen a lot. Then I think the next would be the tone on tone. And then this is just like, woohoo. Woohoo. So I think I liked the tone on tone. That's what I'm going to do. Now you might make another decision. Now let's talk about the size of the dots. I think I'm going to make them all the same size. And you know, this is a nice size dot, but of course this is a small square. So on a piece like this, the dots could be quite a bit larger. And I think that's what I'm going to do, is make the dots larger. I'll use this cutter. I'm not sure whether I'm going to graduate the cutter sizes. See, because that's the next thing we have to talk about, is the arrangement of the dots. And I guess it would make most sense to graduate the size. The large at the bottom, maybe the next row the same, then a smaller cutter, maybe for 2 rows, and then smaller yet at the top. Because, of course, the forms taper. The diameter gets smaller as you get to the opening. Okay, so I will collect my cutters and start mixing my clay. Actually, not mixing it. It's already mixed. But I'd like to talk to you about something that can happen. I know I'm going to be sanding quite a bit, because I'm going to want the sides of these, after I put this clay on, these colors on, and the polka dots, I'm going to try to merge them all together. But I know I'm going to sand after. I'm not going to texture these. I could texture them. Well, I'll make that decision later. Anyway, there's a very good possibility that I am going to be sanding these quite a bit. And so these sheets are not going to be thin. They're going to be setting 1 or 2, something like that, so that I can sand quite a bit away if necessary. One thing about mixed colors, and these are all mixed colors, you know, I'm looking at these here, and when I look at the surface of them, they look perfectly blended, perfectly. It's deceiving, though, because inside they could not be as perfectly blended. It takes a lot to blend color. It takes a lot of folding and rolling and folding and rolling and folding and rolling to get all these different colors that you've assembled to make a color uniformly distributed throughout. And if they're not uniformly distributed throughout, what you have are many minute layers of color in a sheet like this. That's okay, Louie, in a sheet like this. And that's not a problem if I'm going to take and just texture the surface, because you're only going to see the surface. If, however, there are these minute layers of color inside that haven't been completely incorporated to make the color, when you sand, you start revealing those different layers. And then, you know, it looks like mokumegane. No, because that's what it is, just layers, and you're exposing these layers. So all of that I am explaining to you to tell you that when you mix the colors for this, please roll and roll and roll. And when you think you've got it mixed up, roll some more. Now I'm going to show you one way that I think we can tell. I haven't done this before, but let's see if this works. Now I'm going to take this turquoise blue, roll it through the thickest setting of the pasta machine. Okay. Now I'm just going to slab it. I'm going to cut, oops. I do want to introduce like more clay. just going to slab it, like slab. Get rid of that fuzz. Slab. Slab. Let's slab it again. Okay. And if I'm lucky, when I cut across the different layers and I look, I won't see any fine lines of color, of different colors, okay? It looks good so far. So maybe I folded and rolled enough to completely mix the white, the turquoise, the green that it took to make this base color. Okay. And I think this is fine. This is good. The clay is uniformly mixed, because if it wasn't, I would see little tiny lines of different colors. And if I saw that, that would indicate that the clay wasn't completely mixed. Okay, so I hope that's clear. This is completely mixed. I could use this color. I'm not using this color. Okay, so now what I am going to do is I'm going to take these colors, and maybe I'll do the same little test and see if everything's completely mixed. And if not, then I'm going to fold and roll until it is. Okay, I'll be back. Now I'm going to do the bottom first, and I did not put white clay underneath, did I? Or you remember why? Now if I take this clay and it's very thick, it probably won't make a difference, but I am going to roll this clay through a thinner setting because I don't see any reason to make this super thick. I do have to add a bottom though, because do you remember the way I made this? I took this and I just really pushed it into a thick sheet of clay. But you know what? Along here, where you see that flat area, that's really thin. So if you think about it, the bottom is not all that well attached to the top or the sides. So I'm going to reinforce it with more clay. Okay. So let's take some of this green clay off the end. And it doesn't have to be super thick. It just can't be really, really thin. So this has been rolled through setting number 2 on my pasta machine. Now I'm going to move this. I'm going to try to find a clean spot in my studio. Really something. This will help. Okay, setting that aside. Now, rather than cover the bottom with white separately, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to, well, first of all, let's see how big this is. I think that's too small. I bet that will work. But I think I will use the next size up. Yep, like so. Okay, now I'm going to roll my white clay through a very thin setting. Doesn't really have to be a thick setting. Remember, this white is just acting as a barrier between the dark base and the clay on the top, in this case, the clay that leans to the translucent. It's not a true translucent. There's just no white in it, and there's a ton of yellow. Okay, so let me just take and cut out one of the white shapes like so. Put it on here. I'm going to put it on this side. Okay. Like so, and then cut. And I'm doing it this way because I might need this little bit of clay over here. Yep. I mean, I don't know. I probably won't. But it doesn't hurt. A little bit of white. Okay. Let's pick this puppy up. Now, do I want to texture it? It's going to be nearly impossible to sand that bottom, so I am going to texture it. Which means I have to find my sponge. Now, this I rolled through. The white is through 6. The color was through, I think, 2. So I'm going to roll it through 1. And I think this is thick enough. That's thick enough. See, for the bottom. Now let's take some PolyPaste. I haven't decided whether I'm going to cure the bottom separately. I probably should, because I'm going to be doing quite a bit of handling to put the polka dots on. So I'm going to cover the bottoms just like this. Only, of course, the other colors don't need the white. Just this one. And then I will cure all the bottoms because it'll be easier to handle. Okay. And that's going to be important. Ta-ta. Okay, so let's cut it away. Ended up with quite a bit. Go away. Go away. It's quite thick. I did it my way. All right. Oh, okay. This is a good one. They don't all turn out the same, unfortunately. Okay, so now I'm going to cure the bottoms, and then we will start working on the sides and the polka dots. Okay, so let me do the other two, and remember, you don't need to do the white with the other two. So I've covered the 3, da-da, 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 And so what I want to do before I put this in the oven is just pierce the bottom with my acupuncture tool. In case you guys know there are any air pockets. Let's give that old air the means of escaping before it creates a problem for us. Because that air, if there is air down there, in there, what it is going to try to do is it is going to expand, and then it is going to be looking for a way to get out, trying to escape. And we're nice people, we're going to help it along. And that's what these little holes are going to do. Okay, now these will be cured in the oven, and you know, I don't have to cure them for very long. I just want them to get hard so that I can handle them and not damage anything. So I'm thinking 20 minutes. So I'm going to take these and I'm going to cure them. I'll be back. All right, so it's time to begin covering this one. And you can see I've rolled this through setting number 2. And this is plenty. I cannot imagine sanding through all of this clay. I just can't even imagine it. Okay, so let us begin by covering from the neck up to the flared opening. And I believe this is the easiest way for me to do it. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. It wouldn't be the first time, kids. But I kind of think I might have a better chance. Okay, so let us take the clay, and I am going to cut a disc. I have to stand up. Oh, okay, go all the way through. All right. Now, let me take a cutter. I'll just use this one. It might be right. Perhaps I should look for a slightly smaller one. I have so many cutters. Well, same size. And evidently I have a lot that are the same size. I think this one, I'll just go with this. So I'm going to try to cut the center hole out. Or cut a hole out of the center. And I'm going to take my blade and cut a slit. Like so. Now I'm going to take and put PolyPaste from the neck up. Okay. And I think I'm going to line this part with more red clay, but I will do that after. This looks like a little sake bottle. You know, if you go to a Japanese restaurant and you order hot sake, which is so good when it's so cold outside, they usually serve it in something that looks just like this. Okay, so as an aside, if you make one like this, don't ever put anything drinkable in it, okay? I don't know that I have to say that, but I will say it. Okay, so let's take and put that around. Not quite wide enough, but I think I can make it wider because I'm not going to put dots on this part. There'll be dots down here. Okay, so let's just pull this around like so. When I'm resting the base of the vessel against my body, and holding it that way. All right, so I could have made this a little bit wider. In other words, used a larger circle than I did. I think it's going to be okay. I do. But you know, I am an optimist at heart. Which is actually perhaps one of my better characteristics. Maybe. I think these days optimism isn't such a bad thing, is it? Gotta look for the good things. Okay, now I'm just going to try to blend the seam. Sometimes the seams are like, no. Oh, damn. Sometimes the seams are not that cooperative. You know, I think I'm going to just thin this and pull it down a bit, like so. See what I'm doing? I'm just thinning it out, pulling it down a bit. And I think that'll help me retain that thinness at the neck. There. That's not too bad. Maybe I can thin it even further. How about that? Maybe I have to resort to a tool other than my chubby fingers. I'm just rolling and pulling it down a bit, like so. Okay. I'll trim the top later, after. Actually, I changed my mind. I'm going to do the first trim now. I need more room. Just going to take, oops. Just trim some of this excess clay away. Just a bit. Okay. Now, let's work our way down the body. And, you know, I could cut a strip and wrap it around and do that. And perhaps I should. But you saw what happened when I did this upper lip. It was quite easy just by cutting a circle and then, you know, making like a donut shape. So let's continue with donut shape. At some point, I will take a strip and wrap around. But, hey, let's do the donut. Because this isn't quite, it is actually tall enough. I'm just looking for slightly easier ways to get this job done. Okay. So, you know, we might as well try. Well, you know, what's the worst that happens? I take it off. I just take it off. Maybe I will use a larger cutter that will bring the sides down further, but it also makes it more difficult, right? Because suddenly I've got all this extra clay that I have to sort of compress or cut away. I'm going back to the smaller cutter, but not this size. This is a little too small. Okay, let me cut this one. This will take the clay a little bit farther down the body of the vessel. Now, if you see something, do you see this down here? See, I picked up a little piece of clay. I'm going to get rid of it. It helps. You guys know me, I'm usually not this particular. I'm trying to be very particular this time. Because I would like to make something that, you know, that I'm proud to have, that I'm proud to use, that serves a function, an important function for me. Okay. I was thinking about the way I have sort of chosen to work all my life. And it's been pretty much, let's see what happens, and not as much planning. And one of the best things about having my YouTube channel is that it has pushed me into planning and perhaps thinking a little more. And I know that might sound funny, but the way I have always worked has been so instinctive and a lot less analytical. And it served me well. It has, because the nature of what I do, it's been beneficial because I do a lot of different things, right? And that's the way you discover sometimes those different things, is just by doing. Not by thinking so much, but just by doing. Okay, so I've wrapped this around the neck. Looks like a great big collar, doesn't it? Well, that's what it is. It's kind of cute, actually. Okay, but it's not what I want today. So I think I'm going to start here where there is no break and just kind of push it flat like that. Okay, and I'm going to work my way around like so, and let's see how it goes. I mean, honestly, it might be better if I did like just a strip. I'm going to see. We will find out together, right? So, obviously, too much clay, flap, flap. So, I'm going to make a cut and bring that over, and that enables me to flatten it a little bit further, like so, right? Cut the excess away. Like so. Now let's do the other side. Flap, flap, flap. It looks like it's going to take off. Cut. And take this, bring it over, and that will flatten the piece a little bit up here. And that's really all I want. Remove the excess. Okay, there we go. So I think this is working fine. Here we go again, flapping up. Let me cut right there, and then lift and bring this over like so. But I think cutting a donut is working out really well at the neck. Look, I got schmutz. But I'm going to sand it, so I think I can sand the schmutz away. Okay, so I'm going to cut again. And then lift. And I'm going to push the whole thing up to fill that, see that gap? Let's just fill it up right now. Bring it back down. Cut. Cut like that. Where is that? Where'd that black come from? Okay. All right. Now, let me cut that away. And now it's just a question, making another cut so I can flatten this out like so. And then cutting here. And cutting on the other side. Okay, so let's try to get that together so it's an even thickness and not too much overlapping, you know. Every place the clay overlaps, it is thicker. Okay, that's good. Now I just need to blend along that seam, and then I of course need to close these. And the clay is nice and soft, so that shouldn't be too difficult. And as long as there's no air in the seam, in other words, as long as the seam pieces are meeting really tightly with no air, I'll be able to sand and sand away, and there will be no opening. If there is air in there, what would happen is I would sand, and at some point I would reach the air pocket. And that is not what we want. So a lot of this kind of action, right? A lot of pressing and pressing and pressing, trying to press the seams together, you can eliminate that problem and that issue. So then you can sand and sand and sand, and you will never see any air, and you will never see the seam. Okay, that actually is looking good. Okay, if I were going to texture and not sand, then at this point, right, if you see any things like that, you want to get rid of them. Probably not a bad idea to get rid of them anyway. Okay. So with my fingers, I'm just warming where the top sheet is meeting that, the second disc, the second donut I put on. Okay, so it's not always easy to blend in a spot like that. Sometimes it's kind of hard to get a tool in. So you're going to look around and try different tools to help you and see if anything works better than something else. Now, I think if I just, I think I need a little liquid clay. I think that will help me. I also need a clean paper towel, a reasonably clean paper towel. Okay, so I'm going to take my liquid. This time I'm not using the PolyPaste. The PolyPaste is a little bit thick for this application. Plus, remember, I told you that PolyPaste doesn't cure clear. It cures kind of cloudy. So whenever you use it, you have to remember that it will be seen. Okay. Now, let me see if perhaps the end of my brush will do the trick. And because of the liquid, you see the liquid is softening up that clay there. So when I take my tool, I can just sort of glide it across like that. Okay, so that really isn't what I want, because I didn't really want to have something that looked like that. I mean, it doesn't look bad. It isn't exactly what I wanted, though. Okay, so let's see if I can make what I wanted. I'm going to put my fingers in the opening, and I'm going to start pulling that softened clay up like that. Okay. So I'm basically trying to pull the clay from this donut up onto the first one, like that. Now, I've talked about the advantages of my clay. This is a situation where it doesn't share that same kind of blendability that some of the other clays do. Now, it's not that it can't be overcome, because we have some wonderful doll people, Diane Keeler, Forrest Rogers, who have used Kato polyclay a lot. And my, oh my, you can't talk trash about anything they do. So it is quite obvious that it is possible. But I think you just have to learn slightly different strategies for doing it, for doing this blendy thing. And, I'll be honest with you, I don't consider myself the best at this kind of thing, because I don't do it that much. If you followed my work at all, I do a lot of jewelry and things like that, and not all that much sculpture, not really. I've tried it. I would leave it to others who are definitely much better at it than I am. And I will certainly not try to teach it to you, because there are people who are so much better at it. All right, so now I've pulled it up, but it's getting a little dry. I'm just going to put a little more liquid on. I think it's Diane who does a lot of blending, actually, with a brush. But I have to admit, I'm going to have to work a little harder. Okay. All right. So we're getting there. Okay. And it is getting better all the time. I've worked with clay a very long time, but obviously there are things that I have yet to really master. I think sculpture is definitely one of them. All right, so I'm going to keep working on this, just kind of slowly doing it. I think that it's kind of boring to just watch me do it. So I will keep working on it, just like I'm doing. And you know what? As I'm pulling the clay up from here, what's happening? It's moving the clay up. And so look, I'm going to have to trim this again. Not a big problem. Not a problem at all. Okay, so I will be back. Okay, so I did the neck, and I'm pretty happy with that. I'm going to be sanding it quite a bit. But, you know, I think I should do the opening now. I think doing the opening now is really... This has to happen right now. All right. Now, slightly different set of problems here. Okay. Going to use the cutter again, and this clay is nice and thick, right? It's rolled through setting 2, so it isn't terribly thin. Let me clean the edge. I may have to redo it. Okay. Now I'm going to cut an opening, or cut a hole in my donut, like so. Now this time, what I really need to do is I need to kind of prepare this and make it maybe like so, right? Just kind of work it over the form like so, because it's going to drop in like that. You see, it's going to drop in the hole like that. So let me just work on this a little bit, just sort of gradually pulling the clay down. Like so. Like that. Okay. So that it gets dropped in the hole like so. Okay. And it gets worked in, and that's going to work out well. All right, so you see what I've done. I just formed it over the same form because I just needed to create this shape. Now I'm going to take my PolyPaste. Oops, sorry. Getting a little excited. Let's put it on the inside, like so. Glad I'm doing this now. I think it would be much more difficult, or I would have to cure everything and then come back and do it again. We might as well take care of it now. The vessel is easy to handle so far. At some point it gets a little more difficult when it's completely covered with raw clay, but right now I can handle it and noodle it around and do what I have to do. Okay, so let's just drop that down, and I'm going to try to push it right down it like so, along the edge. I'm leaving just a little bit of clay above like so, so I can pull the clay, the raw clay from the outside and the inside together. Okay, there. Now I'm taking these fingers and pulling out and pushing the raw clay against the cured clay opening, like so. And that's tidy looking, and that's really all I want, is I just want it to look neat. Okay, so now let's take the clay along the rim and pull it over a bit. Like so. Okay. I'm just working around gradually, a bit at a time, stretching the clay from inside out to the outside. Okay. Okay, that is really looking good. I'm pretty happy with that. Now I'm just going to run my fingers around and just start pinching the clay from the inside and the clay from the outside together. Okay. So this is what it looks like so far. Nice tidy opening. And I'm slowly getting these together. Now I'll probably have to put a little bit of liquid clay on. But I like to use my brush or some kind of tool, my brass rod, something like that, and I roll one way and I roll the other, and that kind of brings everything together, brings the two parts together. Okay, roll up, roll down, roll across, roll up, roll down and across. Now this is the most difficult one to do. The other two are quite simple, because you don't really have to address the opening much at all. Okay. All right, so that's looking really good. It's all blended. So let's just try. To smooth the join and just make it look nice. We're just gonna make nice. Okay, I will keep working on this. Shouldn't take long. This is actually much simpler than I thought it would be. Using the cutters has really helped speed up the process and actually given us a much nicer finished piece. Okay. All right, so I'm not quite finished with that. I will finish with it, but you don't have to watch me do every single thing since you know the important parts. So let's proceed and cover the rest of the form. Now I'm going to feel where the base, the red clay, meets the base, and it feels really good. It feels very good. It's very smooth. So I don't have to do anything more to that. But what I have to do is I have to make a long strip that will go all the way around. So let me prepare and I will be back. All right, so I've rolled my clay through setting number 2, which is the same as the clay that I've already put on. Now, I want to make a nice straight cut. I find that it kind of helps a bit. So I'm just kind of doing the roll the blade around thing. Then remove the extra. Come on, get off. You can do it. Get off. I'm going to try not to make a mess here. And see if I can just cut that off. It's sticking very nicely where I don't want it to stick. Okay, so that's pretty good. Now I'm going to take a ruler and I'm going to cut a straight edge straight across. I have a million rulers and they're all like buried under stuff. Here, I found one. I found one. All right, quickly, Donna. Wipe off your ruler. Okay, now let's just cut a nice straight edge. Doink, 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 boink, boink. Okay, that's as nice as I can make it. I'm going to cut one more. Let's cut a nice straight edge here. And I'm going to put PolyPaste around this whole vessel. Yes, I am. All right. So after I've done that, I'll be back. Okay, so I put PolyPaste over the whole vessel. And I'm ready to start covering. So first, I'm just going to secure a spot. And as I work around, I'm going to do my best to kind of compress where I have to so that it does meet. If I just let this the sheet do what it wants to do, it's just going to go down the sides like that. I don't want it to. I want it to stay up. Okay, now I don't know if you can see right there, that's the seam. Okay, so I'm just going to keep going and kind of stretching the clay at the bottom as I'm pulling. Let go, let go. And it may not exactly want to stretch for me, but it's stretching. And I don't think it's stretching too terribly much. And it's so thick. The clay itself is so thick that I can actually do it. So let's just stretch that up a bit, like so. And let me finish this up by just stretching it like that. Okay. Now I will lift, and let's just see. Just move that clay down like that. So here is what I have at the opening, just like so. Okay, so it's coming out this way. And I think that's actually fine. So let me just try to work it back up in here like so. Pull this flap over like that. And that's what I will have to cut. You see, I think you can probably see that, just like that. I think I am going to try actually, I'm going to go over. You see how I've gone over? And that is where I would cut to make it fit exactly. But this is where I'm going to cut. I'm going to cut beyond, all the way down like that. Now I will lift and remove the clay from below. And then bring them together. And this should be an exact fit, or as close to exact as I can get, like that. Okay, so that was definitely the better strategy. Okay, good. Not too bad. Not too bad. Okay. All right, now let's trim the bottom. Trim the bottom. I think I'll have to sand the bottom. I did put this on aluminum foil, but look, it's not, I don't know what that is. So I'll lightly sand it. Okay. Now I have to smooth. I have to smooth all these seams. It's not really that much, just this one long one and then this around the neck. So that's not bad at all. Okay. Clean off my brush. Just clean off my brush a little bit. And I'm going to start by putting some liquid clay along the seam. And I will work and smooth all my seams, and then I'll be back, because the next thing we have to do, we have to plot out those polka dots. All right, so I completely covered, and it's looking really good. Now what I want you to make sure of is at the seams that the seams are really closed, okay? It's just what I talked about at the top. So let's figure out where the dots are going to be. And the way I'm going to do it is by using this paper. I use this paper a lot. And let's wrap it around. Now, half of a sheet of this paper is about as tall. Well, it goes almost up to the neck. Okay. So first I wrap it around and mark it, and I already marked it. So it is this long. Okay, now what I'm going to do is fold it first. And you know, this is the first time I've done it, so I'm hoping I do this in a way that makes sense. Now, we also have to decide how the dots are going to be. Are the dots going to be, let me just grab a piece of little paper, like this, in a row, and then the next row, like that, all the way around? Or are they going to be offset? Doink, 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 doink. I don't know. There's no correct. There's just what you want. Okay? So this is definitely easier. We can figure that out. I can figure out, let's say, along this line exactly where the dots should go. Okay? You see? I have this line. I can figure out and space them maybe an inch apart, maybe half an inch apart. Okay, we can make that decision. But the offset ones mean that you have to measure two different rows. Well, you've doubled the number of rows that you have to figure out. So let's start with the easier process, okay? Let's just start with the easier. So the large dot will be at the bottom. Let's see, how many inches is this? It is 5, and, well, let me just put it here, 5. And let's make the dots 4.5, 3.5, 2.5, 1.5, and 1/2. It's a place to start. Okay. Here, 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 and here. So I would measure out the dots. Maybe the largest one here. Maybe I have to collect all my round cutters. Anyway, I think you see what happens here. And then just keep working the smaller ones up, and that's what would happen. The dots would be smaller at the top than they are at the bottom. So let me collect more of my cutters, and I will be back. All right, I pulled out my Kemper cutters, and this is what I have. These are the sizes, and these I can use so that the large dots will be, of course, around the base, and then they get thinner as they go up. And I think that's what I'm going to do, because I don't want to make this too difficult the first time, all right? Because we're going to be doing color replacement. We're going to be doing it right on the vessel itself. Okay, so here's another thing. If you're a little afraid of doing what I'm going to show you, then you could certainly first cure the base, sand it, and then add the dots later and re-cure. Okay? You could do that. That would be no problem. All right, so let's get started. I'm going to take my clay, and I think this was the color I decided on. I have all these different colors. So I think this was the color I decided on. Well, now it is. Now it is. Of course, I'm being drawn to white again because white is the safe way. Oh, okay. I'm just going to do this. I'll be back. Okay, so I changed my mind. I'm doing white. I mean, okay, so I have a tendency to think, oh, this is a better idea. Sometimes it's not. So I am going to go with what I know works. What a concept for me. It's different. It's this, maybe it's my attention span. I have a problem with my attention span. It's extremely short. Okay, so I am just picking a place to start. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this acupuncture needle and I am just going to run this paper straight up. You see this line is just running straight up the vessel. Like that. I suppose I could even do one at the neck. I can do that later if I like. So now I have these 6 marks. So let us begin. Now I have no expectation that this is going to be absolutely perfect. Okay, I mean, I just don't. So first I'm going to try, it'd be so much easier if I could see through this, but I can't. There's a light mark, it's off. I have to move down. That's a little off. That is better. Like so. How is that? That's good. That's good. That is acceptable. Now I'm just going to cut, and I have to rock the cutter just a little bit because I'm cutting against a curved surface. Now let me pull this out best I can. It's good and stuck, nice and stuck. Okay, I'm just gonna run my needle around because evidently I did not cut all the way through. It is quite thick, remember. Just take your time. Okay, so there's the first one. Now, I don't know, should I do, well, whatever. I'm just gonna keep going. So there is the, is that good? A little higher up, I think. Okay, that's pretty good. So it's going to be this kind of process where, and I just have to tell you, it's not going to be perfect. I know it's not. Because I can't see through the cutter. I do not have X-ray eyes. Okay, now let's move to the next one. The difference between these two, I do not believe I have a cutter in between. So. Yeah, this was the one. Boink, boink, boink. Then this little guy. Then finally this little guy on top. No, he seems pretty far, well, I think it's gonna be okay. It makes sense. Well, it makes sense to me. Okay, so there they are. That is the first row, and it is a little crooked. It is. It's just a tad crooked. So now I'm going to take the same cutters and cut, and then insert the dots. Okay. Yeah, I'm glad I'm using the white. I mean, it's very clean looking. And I think that's what I loved about the mugs I bought too. Nice strong color, and then these white dots. Oops, look at that. What is that? Oh, it's a teeny tiny grommet. I wonder where that came from. Okay, so there's the first row. All right, so let's set this aside, the white clay aside, because now we have to figure out where to put the second. Now, the second row should be directly opposite this one. That's what I want. So here's the center of the first row, like so, sort of, if I can get it. Now I'm going to wrap it around. And here is the opposite side, right there. Directly opposite. Now, let me punch my little holes as I did before. Hole. 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 And I will repeat what I did here, okay? Hopefully I'll do a little better job. This is a little bit crooked. I'll be back. Okay, I have one row there. One row there. Now I have to put one right there. How am I going to find that? Well, I made another fold in my template from this edge to the center. So what I will do is position the fold on one of the rows of white dots. Like so, like that. Okay. And just move this over, and theoretically, this should be right in the center. Okay, so let me just hold it, and then that goes all the way up to the top. Same boogie. It's slightly off though. It's going a little bit downhill, so let me try to align the bottom a little better so that it's not going up. It's kind of I want it to go straight across. There, that's better. Okay. Okay, so now same thing. Right down this line. Okay, now I have this row that is right between these two. Then the last one will be up between these. So I'll have 1, 2, 3, 8 rows. 8 rows of dots. All right, so let me work on this, and then I'll work on the other side, and then I'll be back. Okay, so I have the 4 evenly spaced rows. Now, I can do the same thing and align them. Or, you know what? I bet I could do this by just by looking. I can probably do this myself and maybe do the same thing all the way up to there. What do you think? Let's do it. I mean, what I've done is not perfect so far, but it's not bad. Just can't mix them up. Just have to center it between the 4 dots, like so. Okay, then go to the next size. Try to do the same thing, center. Okay, good deal. Then go to the next size. Try not to mix them up. And then finally, this little guy on top. Then carefully pull these out and fill them in. So the mapping the first 4 rows was really kind of the important part, but I think you'll find it quite easy to fill in the spaces between. Okay, I don't think that will be too difficult. This, I think, is the next size. Cute. Okay, so let me finish filling the rows in between. This is really cute. I love it. I love it. Okay, and then I'll be back. Okay, so all the dots are in. It looks really cute. I really like it. I like it. And here's my template. I'm going to use this and do exactly the same thing on the other vessels. Okay, the same measuring, the same cutters, everything. Okay, so let me just smooth this best I can. I'm just going to use this paper. I really like this paper. Okay, so I will write what this is. It's, as I said, it's for food. For food. Wrapping sandwiches or something. Okay, so I'm going to do a lot of this kind of thing. And wherever I see any spaces, like there, and like here, see? Look, I got a nice little space there. Let's just try to eliminate that. And paper really helps me out a lot because my tool just glides across instead of sticking. And the paper, well, I don't know, it's not exactly paper, the food film, whatever it is. It also is maintaining the nice roundness of the dots. Okay, so I will continue working on this, and it's also cleaner because I'm not touching it. Okay, that's important. Okay, I think these are going to be really cute. I'm glad I stuck with the white. I have the attention span of a gnat. And sometimes it works, and sometimes I'm like, why didn't I just do what I knew would work? Why do I always have to change things? Okay, so I'm going to keep working. I'll be back. Okay, so I finished pretty much smoothing, but this is what it's called, satin pack. Satin pack. It does leave kind of, gashes in the clay. So maybe in a few places I'll smooth them over. As I said, I'm going to be sanding. I'm going to be sanding a lot. So, and this also helps, just the warmth of my palms like this. Probably soften it a bit like so. All right. So one vessel is pretty much, well, it's ready to be cured. Let me put it that way. I think I will go ahead and cure it. No, actually, no. I'm going to do them all and then cure them all at the same time. Okay. This is really cute. I really like it. Polka dots. Then I'll just have to buy some Posies to put in my new vessels. Okay, so let me move on and make the other two. Ta-ta. Okay, so, if you see any gapping between the white, the dots, and the background, then just make sure push it down. Okay, moving on. Okay, so I have wrapped this vessel, so I'm ready to start polka dotting. But the diameters of these three vessels are not the same, so I rewrapped, and you see this is larger just by that much. So I think I will stick with the same measurement, but instead of using this fold, I'm going to fold to there, right? There's the center line, and I'm just going to fold right on there. So when I do my quarter measures, this is now the line. Lime green. And who knows, I may have to make another one when I get to this point, but I won't use this line. I will use this line. So now I'm going to polka dot this. Oops, I had an accident. I have to fix that. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, they're done. They're ready to go into the oven. So here are my three vessels. I love them. I really love them. Okay, so I'll be back after they are cured. Okay, so I wanted to show you the difference. I sanded this and then I put some Nivea on it. And this is sanded, this is not, so you can see the difference. Oh, okay, I wanted you to see the difference. Now, this one has been sanded, and this one has not been. So I think you can see the difference. Look at how scratchy the white dots are here. Well, not scratchy exactly, but from that plastic stuff. See, it just left little, oh goodness. All right, so here we have one that, a vessel that I've sanded. You can see it. And here's one that I have not, so you can see how the surface is much more rough. So I'm going to sand it. Now, I sanded this with Abranet P120, then 180, and then 600. Then I applied Nivea to the surface. And this Nivea cream is really good. It's best for clay. Much better for clay than skin, I think, because it's very greasy. All right. So let me sand this. You can take a good look. It's not bad, but you know, it's not nice like this one. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So here's my 120. You can see it has a lot of the grit in it. Whew. So I like to wrap it around this sponge. This is actually a sponge that came with my micro mesh. Okay, and then I just take it and start sanding it down like so. And I do a lot of feeling like that because I can feel if it's not really even, and I can feel if it's not smooth. Okay. You can see even that much. It's very scratched up, but those white polka dots are very smooth. So I will continue, and then I will switch to the 180 and then to the 600. All right, so I finished with the 120. Now I will start with the 180. Now you can wear like a mask when you do this. I do this dry sanding. This is quite a bit of sanding. I'm making quite a bit of dust. So, you know, all those COVID masks, well, just pop one on there when you're sanding like this. Okay, so now I'm going to take this, my 180. It's a little tiny piece, isn't it? Anyway, I'm going to sand. And mostly I feel the difference. This is very coarse. This is very smooth. So I will continue and I'll be back. Okay, so last of all, I'm going to use the P600. This is a longer piece, so it's a little bit easier to sand it like this. Okay. All right, so let me finish this and I'll be back. Now it really feels great. Okay, so here's a look at it. It's not perfect. I have some imperfections. I can go back and sand it. If it bothers me, I don't know if it bothers, to tell you the truth, I don't know if it bothers me. I mean, I like it. Okay, so now I'm going to show you the Nivea. So look at how scratched up this area is. Let me just take this Nivea. And it completely changes it, doesn't it? And it deepens the color. Now, it won't if you look at it, you see it has a very subtle kind of sheen on the surface. Well, what will happen is the Nivea kind of sinks into the clay, and it looks more like, oh, well, how can I say this? I've been working here all day. I'm losing my words. It looks more like a velvety, okay? So it will sink in, and then it takes on kind of a more matte appearance, but you don't see the scratches as much. All right, so I will do the rest of it. I think I'm going to quit for the day, and you know, I'll be back. Okay, it's been Nivea'd. It feels really great. Now, the Nivea will eventually kind of wear off, but just put more on. It's really great stuff, you know, it's very good. It's non-toxic. Totally non-toxic, of course, because it's lotion. Doesn't that look great? This one too. These are looking really great. Okay, so I am going to do the green one. You will see it when it's done later. Okay, so these are done. You know, they aren't perfect. I can feel where, you know, perhaps I should sand a little more. Not a big deal. I'll think about that. I can always do it. Then here's the green, the lime green. And here's this color. Oh, I really like these. I think I'm gonna have to go buy some Posies. Okay, I'll be back. Okay, well, here we are at the end. We have vessels. You know, I really liked making them, and I really enjoyed making this class. I did make another one just to show you what tone on tone. This is that turquoise that I originally was considering, but it was a little too bright and a little too deep. So I added more white and I made it a pastel, and then I added more white to some of it to make even paler dots, and I really think this is sweet. I like this very much. I think this will go in my guest bedroom. So sweet. But you can also see that in this particular vessel, I wanted to do it this way to show you what it looks like when the dots are just small and uniform. They're all the same, from the same cutter. Whereas, of course, we graduated these. I had 5 different sizes of cutters to make these other vessels. Now, the one thing, I hope you learned some stuff from this, because I think that, well, primarily the one thing that may ruin a vessel that you make is not adequately mixing your colors. If you custom mix the colors, make sure they are totally mixed, because when you sand, you can actually ruin your vessel. You can turn it into mokumigane that you don't want. So, I hope to do a lot more home dec. I really like it. Decorate your body, decorate your house. And I really enjoyed it. So I hope you did too. And, you know, one thing I learned watching, I am a really furry person. I mean, I've got dust all over me and fur all over me. I'm going to have to pay more attention to that. It is amazing that all of my pieces aren't filled with dust and Louis fur. But I hope you forgive me for that. I'll try to be better, and I'll try to keep myself under the camera a little better too. I don't know what goes through my mind when I go off into the distance. Anyway, thanks for watching, and until we meet again, goodbye.